Hello everybody, my name is Don Richards, I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the Trust. Over the next few minutes I'd like to run through the financial headlines for the 2019-20 financial year. I'd like to cover how we performed against our most high profile financial target, the income and expenditure account. Also talk about how we invested in our environment and in new equipment, what that meant for our balance sheet, which basically tells us what we owe and what we own. So first of all, 2019-20 was a good year for us financially. We ended the year with a financial deficit of 22.47 million. Now that compared to the previous year when we had a much larger deficit of 49.6 million. But most importantly, that deficit was in line with the target that we were set by NHS improvement. So our target was to end the year with a deficit of 22.7 million, which means that we were targeted with spending no more than 22.7 million above the amount of income that we earned. You can see the income and expenditure figures for this financial year. We earned £394 million and we spent altogether £416 million, leading to the deficit I described earlier of £22.5 million. And that compares with a much worse figure last year, a deficit of £49.6 million. It's worth pointing out that the Trust received central receipts of £27.8 million, which was contingent on the Trust meeting our target for the year. On this slide, what I've summarised is the balance sheet for the Trust. The balance sheet describes the value of assets that the Trust owns and the value of liabilities, or what we owe to other bodies. The balance sheet shows that we continued to borrow to support the income and expenditure deficit, and that borrowing rose by 7% in the year. This slide provides more detail on the income that we earned as a Trust. Those of you that have attended previous annual general meetings will remember that each year the numbers of patients that we treat in an emergency has been rising. The income that we received from treating emergency patients in our beds rose by 11% this year. And also the amount of income that we earned through patients attending A&E rose by 18%. In 2019-20. On the other hand, income that we earned through treating elective patients in beds actually fell. Part of that was due to the impact of coronavirus in March, but also we've been developing new ways of managing elective care in partnership with our CCG, our host CCG during the year. As you'd expect, most of our income comes from services commissioned by Herts Clinical Care Group. £270 million of our income came from Herts Valley CCG. In addition to income that we received from CCGs and other sources, £10 million of our income was received centrally to specifically pay for the increase in employer contributions for pensions. Also, as I mentioned earlier, £28 million of our income came in line with us performing in line with expectations, and the Trust received additional income due to that level of performance. This slide focuses on what we spent during 2019-20. Total costs, as you'd expect, increased compared to our previous year, but roughly £10 million of that cost increase was due to increased employer pension contributions, as I described earlier. Paid costs excluding that pension cost increase increased by 7%. That's largely in response to the growth in patient numbers, and also, as you'd expect, due to increases in pay for our staff. However, it's important to note that for the fourth year in a row, the amount of money that we've been spending on agency staff fell. In 2019-20, our agency costs actually fell by 9% to 13.6 million. And it's worth remembering that in 2015-16, which was the first year for most of the executive team, agency costs were over £36 million at the trust. Also in 2019-20, it's worth pointing out that we found new efficiencies worth £15 million, which was in line with the target that we set at the beginning of the year. This slide provides information on the amount of money we spent on new assets. So improving our environment through spending money on buildings, new equipment, and spending on technology that's expected to last more than a year. On the right of the slide, I've summarised where we invested our capital allocation. We spent £21.5 million on new assets in 2019-20, and that's more than we've spent in any of the last 5 years. And that spending has helped to improve the quality of services that we're able to provide. You can see from the table that we spent £5 million on IT investments. That's been one of the areas that the Trust has faced difficulties with. And we also spent a significant amount on replacing ageing diagnostic and general medical equipment. Looking forward to next year, we expect to, in fact, double the amount that we spent in 2019-20, anticipating spending over £14 million on capital expenditure, while still breaking even on the income and expenditure account. Some of you will know we're expecting to continue work on planning for our redevelopment, investing in a new multi-storey car park, investing in our new operating theatres at Watford, and also continuing to improve the general infrastructure and fire safety.